You don't do things for gain. You do things because, one, I want to see, I want to leave people better than I find them.
Welcome, badass entrepreneurs. It's time to hear the world's movers, shakers, and difference makers spill their secrets for unlimited success. So strap in, for Badass Entrepreneurs Only begins now. Today, I'm speaking with Simon Leslie, one of the most successful media moguls in the world that you've probably never heard of. Simon Leslie invented with his company Reach TV, the largest airport television network with over 2,500 screens in commercial and private airports across North America. Simon Leslie is today a world-renowned expert in air travel, but there's a much, much more compelling aspect to Simon's story, which he will reveal to us today. If you want to know what it takes to turn one simple idea into a billion-dollar industry and survive all the unexpected ups and downs that come with it, you're going to want to listen to what Simon Leslie has to say. So today, rather than the usual rah-rah success story, we're also going to talk about what it takes for you as an entrepreneur to fight through devastation and come back. Because in every business, there will be success and there will be failure. And if you don't learn to do what Simon Leslie did, then failure will be the end of your story. We are so unbelievably fortunate to have him with us here today. So let's get badass. Simon Leslie, welcome, welcome, welcome to For Badass Entrepreneurs Only.
Wow, that's the best intro I've ever had.
You're just so incredibly humble. Your quote on your LinkedIn profile, most people have this self-aggrandizing business description like, I'm the chief architect of the universe. But under your name, it says creating magical moments and leaving people better than I find them. Why is creating magical moments so important to you?
Last week, I was in Miami with a fellow CEO, and he's like the professor of sales. And I said, well, I'm just the magician. He goes, yes, but it's not magic unless you can explain what you do. I said, spend 2 days with me and see what it is. And at the end of the 2 days, he goes, I've got no idea what you do. He said, but it's magic. And I said, I guess that's the trick of magic, isn't it? You do it, you see a magic trick, and you go, how the hell does he do that? And that's the effect I'd like to have, is that I want to create these moments every single day that anybody who I'm in contact with feels like energized, because my currency is energy. If my energy is low, then my results are low, my performance is low. So I create this high energy environment, high energy performance. And if I do that, I know I'm going to win.
I love the correction that you just made there. And that you said, I try. I said, no, I don't try. Because so many people will talk about a challenge or about taking on a challenge with the word try. And it's really clear to me in that correction that you just made that your intention must be about success, because try is not a successful term. Would you agree with that?
There's a banned word in this office. If they saw me using it, I would get my hands clipped. We ban try, can't, won't, shan't, can't. We're very active in the linguistics. We all believe that anything is possible. I just had it's the last day of the month, and we had a big roundup today with all the teams in Singapore and Miami and London. And I said, look, I want you to feel celebrated. If you're in an environment here, you don't feel celebrated, let me know, because I want to celebrate you. I want to make sure that everyone here feels celebrated. We've had a great month, and I want to make sure that you feel like you're part of our success. Even if you didn't sell the most amount of money, even if you sold the least amount of money, you're still part of what we are and who we are. And I find that really important, because we had an amazing culture in 19. We had 160, 170 people in my teams, and it got obliterated, I guess. And so now I'm having to rebuild my old culture back again with a lot of new people who've got no history, who've got no reference point to the way we do things around here. They can see these nice offices, and they can see the free coffee and the free juice and the free fruit and free yogurts. But that's not important to me. What's important is, am I achieving things for them? Am I helping them get bigger, better, stronger, and enjoying what they do? And there's a lot of people will talk about passion in your job. You've got to find passion in what you do. That gives you an element of joy in your job, but doesn't mean you're going to still be any good at it. So we got to do things that make us better, that make us slightly uncomfortable, that bring out the best in us. I think that's what a badass entrepreneur is.
Yeah. And I mean, I would take out the word slightly and just go with uncomfortable. And something that you just mentioned, this wasn't kind of in my list of questions, but it's so compelling right now because I was just talking with my exec this morning about the lack of enthusiasm and the lack of experts there are. We had a plumbing company come in and look at a problem and they said, yeah, that's just not fixable. And over the weekend, I fixed it. And I was talking to her, I said, what happened to experts? What happened to people who came in and said, don't worry, I'm going to handle this. Your problems are over. And I think it is just what you were saying about celebrating. People in their jobs don't feel celebrated. They don't feel a part of something. I think that the people running the company are giving half measures to their employees. So the employees are giving half measures to the customers. Would you agree with that?
100%. I don't know if you get this program in the States, but I was watching a program last night called The Repair Shop. And I've never seen it before, but there's 10 series of it. So it's obviously been going on a while. And basically people bring like the really impossible things to fix into this. They have like a barn and they fix them. And the episode I was watching was with our current king, but he was obviously Prince of Wales when he went in there. And he brought in a vase and a clock and they fixed these things. And he was like, you know, the level of detail and love and passion that went into fixing these items was just so inspirational to watch. And I just thought, imagine if we had an organization where every person felt that way about their clients, felt that way about the business, that there wasn't a level of effort that went into their daily work, that, you know, what sort of business that would be and what sort of business that would create in a corporate, you know, it's, when you're only doing 2 or 3 projects a week, you know, it's easy to maintain that level. But when you're doing thousands of projects like we do, can I build that? I don't know, but I'm going to have a bloody good go.
And it's 100% what you're saying. It's like if I don't feel cared for by the people who are hiring me, and just like you say, regardless of the free coffee and the donuts, but that I am uniquely cared for, that I'm celebrated, then why should I care about the people that I interact with? And I think that has created this space of people feeling uncared for. You know, I got a Tesla Model X, right? And I thought that, wow, they're really going to take care of me. But all the way through the buying experience and all the way through, I mean, I just had it serviced. And it's this whole culture of, it's not my fault. So when I would talk to someone, right, they would just say, well, this is not my fault. I mean, in one form or another, it's like, I'm not trying to blame you. I just want some help. And what's the cure for that, Simon? Like, would you please join Tesla and fix this? Like, what would you do?
Well, if your leader hasn't got emotional intelligence, it's unlikely to filter through, right?
Okay, right. Agreed. But what would you do in that situation? How would you turn things around?
I think there's an unfortunate level of poor service across many businesses, especially the bigger ones. You know, a lot of the service levels are coming out of the Philippines or India or somewhere in the middle of nowhere, where people are not even familiar with just anything that goes on locally. And you just need to go back to, look, it's going to be more expensive, right? It's going to be more expensive to do what we want to do, because you can't keep cutting corners and not expect to get a circle. Because this is what's happened, is that nobody wants to take responsibility. Nobody wants to take any ownership. Everybody's scared to get fired. Therefore, no one takes any risks. I saw this in a restaurant last week. I was in a very nice restaurant not last week, yesterday, Saturday. And she said to me, she brought me the food and I said, it was all right. She goes, okay, thanks. Whereas, and they have a sister restaurant next door, and if she brought me poached eggs out, and they weren't quite right, and I went, they're not quite right. She's like, technically, I'm going to fix it. Do not worry. So, you know, that's the level of service that restaurant has. So when I'm going to their slightly more expensive sister restaurant, I'm thinking, well, the level of service should be right. 2 of my items didn't come. And I told her, and she said, okay, no problem, I'll take it off the bill. And I said, that's not the point. Of course, I don't expect, of course, I'm not going to pay for something I haven't had. But it spoiled the meal. You know, there were sides that were going to enhance the meal.
Right.
And so she gave me the bill and I paid it. And the manager came over and he said, well, how was everything? I said, well, Had I been next door and what happened now, I would have felt very differently. He took out his card. He goes, look, I'm really sorry. Next time you come, let me look after you. I said, that's useful because it's flipping hard to get a table here. Now I've got your number. I can get a table at least. But, I said, he literally went over the top and was, like just trying to make it good. But it's like, you just spoiled the experience. The food we had was so tasty. It wasn't that she was even a bad server. It was just, it was that the missing link. And maybe I'm sounding like I'm a spoiled brat now, but you get, when you go into these restaurants and they're charging you what they're charging you, you expect them to just, if something that's not quite right, to jump up and down.
I know it's a missed art. And the advantage is, and the reason that we're talking about this is because the people listening right now, you have a unique opportunity to really show up big by being considerate of how people feel, what the experience is. And what I see you do, Simon, you did it at the event that we just attended. You did it, when I saw you previously. You create an experience. And just like on your LinkedIn, it's a magical experience. And I want to get back to, what we were talking about. I mean, this is fascinating, but, with Inc. and Reach TV, first, what did you do to grow those? You say they brought you in to grow them. So what did you do to grow those companies?
I just want to touch on one point which you just triggered in my mind.
Please.
So somebody did some cold outreach on LinkedIn to me, and I get hundreds of cold outreach every single day.
Yeah.
and I'm quite critical of anybody who's sloppy. This guy, his LinkedIn thing was very specific. I was his target audience, right? So he created that environment where I felt he was linking in with me and I was exactly the sort of guy he was looking for. He came on the Zoom. So I agreed to meet him, and his sales process was perfect. And I told him, and that threw him because he was going through this sales process. And I guess what I said had never been said before to him because he didn't know how to deal with it. He went, is that a criticism or a compliment? I said, well, how did you receive it? He goes, I don't really know. I said, well, there you go. It is whatever it's a gift from me to you. You can receive it any way you want to receive it. And I think that's the other thing, is that you can be so perfect in many ways, but if you're not human and you miss the opportunity to be human between two people having a conversation, that's no good either. How did I build Inc? With a little bit of luck, with a lot of luck, actually, because we had some really lucky moments. Listen, 2001, when we were just getting going, 9/11 came along, and that really unsettled the industry. And I'll never forget, by Christmas, we were sort of back to normal again. We hadn't really, it had passed, whereas all our competitors were like 1-2 years later, they were still coming to terms with it. And I just thought, I found that quite strange.
Yeah, why? What did you do?
Because it was an excuse, it was a story, it was it allowed them for mediocre performance. And that's why I think whilst they were all, out there complaining about how difficult it was, I was just doing it. I made every one of my team get on airplanes, go to see clients, be in the market. We really did steal a march on everybody else because everybody else was sort of looking around going, yeah, it's tough, but it's 9/11. I'll never forget, I was walking down, New York is different, but I was with one of my competitors in New York in about 2004, 2005. And he said, we still haven't quite recovered since 9/11. And I'm like, what? It's 4 years later. So I think people described last week, some people see problems, I see opportunities. Opportunities are they're gift wrapped in problems. And unless you're peeling back those problems, you're just going to keep seeing more and more problems. And the biggest challenge is that there are so many levels of problems before you get to the opportunity. But as like that picture of the man chipping away at the coal, if there's something, or the rock, and there's a diamond behind there because there's an opportunity waiting for you, you just keep going. You keep going, you become relentless. You set yourself unrealistic targets, and very rarely do you hit them, but you get bloody close. And when you get bloody close, you get better and better.
I love that, Simon. And the core of that is the story that we tell ourselves, right? Like, what is the experience that we're having right now? And what am I making of it? Because the experience is just the experience. It's nothing. It's the story that you tell yourself, which is what my my book is about. It's a story that we tell ourselves that determines whether or not we're going to move forward. Would you agree with that?
100%. We live in a story. We're living in a movie set, right? And your movie is, it's a high energy drama. You're
Yeah.
the leading man. You're the script writer. You're writing the script you want. I always joke sometimes that my script writers are having a laugh with me. They're trying to test me to see how tough I can be. But really, it is my script. It is my narrative. It is my play. I want to have a happy ending. I want it to be fun. And if I believe it's going to be like, that's the way it's going to believe. That's the way it's going to play. I mean, one of the lines I always tell at the end of my speech is, it'll all be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. There's a sequel coming and there's another sequel after that. But I get to still play the main actor. As long as I'm on this planet, as long as my feet are on the ground, I'm going to keep playing and I'm going to play the best to the best of my ability.
I love that, Simon. I really love that. And the thing in my research of you, one of the things that I recognize is that for the airline industry, the pandemic was really the third hit, not the first. Like you say, there was 9/11, there was the economic downturn. So when the pandemic hits, now there's this huge drop in air travel. When that started happening, did you start planning? Did you have an idea what you were going to do to compensate, or were you just overtaken by the tsunami of the devastation?
I mean, it wasn't actually the third, it was about the fifth, because we had 2000 SARS, and we had bird flu, and we had ash cloud. And then we had 2012 when all the European countries started going bankrupt. And then in 2014, we did a self-destruct on ourselves because we were so worried about print dying, because everybody kept telling us print is dying. So this is a real lesson for anybody in business. People will tell you that your business is dying and you need to reinvent itself. This was 2007 that conversation started. Oh, you need to get out of these magazines. These magazines are going nowhere. They're going to be gone soon. And had it not been for COVID, they would still be here today. But COVID definitely took the magazine. January 2020 was our best issues ever. We were going to have the best year we'd ever had in magazines. We had 33 magazines, maybe 36 magazines. I can never remember the exact number. We had a lot of magazines. Today we have 5. Our nearest competitor probably has 1 or 2. Before we had 30, I think it was 36. And our nearest competitors had 4. So we were definitely the dominant player in this, and we owned the space because we cared about it. From the day we won a contract was the day we repitched for a contract. And, we put every bit of our energy and our teams. We hired the best teams we could with incredible editorial experience, with the best designers, best photographers. We always put the best teams on every product, and I think that's why we dominated and we succeeded when others had tried to do this space. There is an underlying thing as well, which I think people don't give us enough credit for, or don't realize. You see, people would pitch against us and they'd say, "Oh yeah, but I could do a beautiful magazine." That wasn't the secret sauce. Doing a magazine or putting pictures on the pages, it was being able to monetize it and make the airlines money. That was our secret sauce.
And how did you do that?
We worked harder than anybody else. We had the highest, we had high energy, and we went out and we never looked back. I'll never forget, one of the first trips I ever did was I took one of my guys and we went to Portugal. This is about 2002, something like that. And about a year and a half later, he comes banging on my door and he says, "Oh, we've done it." I said, "What?" We did 11 appointments in 3 days, 11 appointments each day for 3 days. So we did breakfast appointments for the day, lunch appointments, and dinner appointments. So we saw about 30 people. I said, "What have we done?" He goes, "I've now sold to everybody we saw." So he was so determined.
Wow.
From that trip, it took him 2 years, but he sold to everybody, became a client. He didn't take no for an answer. We got lots of no's at the time. I said, but it's just not the right timing now.
Yeah.
We were always on the crest of a wave of the low-cost airlines where suddenly you could fly to the south of France or the south of Spain for a price of a pair of jeans.
Yeah. It's easy to say, I won't take no for an answer. But when you're sitting in front of someone and they say no, what do you do?
I say, "You don't mean no." And they go, what do you mean? I mean, no. I say, I mean, not now or not yet. Because surely you want to reach this audience. It's just the timing's wrong. If you don't want to reach the audience, I wouldn't be sat in front of you. And they'd go, yeah, you're probably right, but not now. Okay. Keep following up.
Yeah. And so when someone says not now, you like, I mean, that's, I always look at every sales conversation has to end in a yes or no or next interaction, right? So we're talking next interaction. And I don't know, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're allowing yourself to be unattached to when it is. Would you say that's what's taking the pressure off of people, or what's the?
I'm unattached at all to the response. It's like good or bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I know if this is a good or bad interview? We have a great conversation. You can say lots of nice things about me, and I go, yeah, it's great. But something might happen out of this conversation that neither of us know about in a year's time.
Yeah.
Someone phones me up and says, you know what? I saw you on Dan Gordon's podcast, and I'd like to hire you because I liked what you said. And you go, and I go, that was a great podcast. That guy turns out to be a nightmare client, doesn't pay my bills. And then all of a sudden I say, that was a terrible client.
Right.
So it's the, good, bad, maybe, right?
Yeah.
All I'm going to do is present the best opportunity to everybody I meet. Some will take it, some will won't, some will get a good response. And that's the other thing is that people say, well, I didn't get a good response from that advert I took of yours. And I tell them the Sunseeker story. I said, look, I saw a Sunseeker advert when I was 19. It took me 13 years before I bought a Sunseeker. And it was an amazing day when I sold it. But
wait a second.
2 good days, the day you buy it, the day you sell it.
Yeah, right? I've heard that.
But the thing was, they started sowing that seeds in me at 19. And advertising isn't linear. You don't buy an advert today to expect to get response tomorrow, but that's how most people buy advertising and buy media today. Oh yes, I'll run a 12-week campaign and I'll test you. I said, what are you going to test me against? You're testing me against your creative. If your creative is any good, then people will respond if they want. If your offer's no good, they won't. So that's the only test. There's no test in what I do. There's a test in you. You're testing yourself. Most salespeople are not prepared to challenge that assumption. Okay, no problem. We'll test. We'll do our best to deliver.
Yeah.
And they can't. Nobody can. Even the mighty Google can't, guarantee you anything. So, of
course,
if even with all their brains and geniuses can't do it, then why should, little old me be able to do it?
Yeah. And I look at that as, and I say this a lot, is that there is selling and there is getting people to buy something, right? What you just described with the, oh yeah, we'll test it. That's getting someone to buy something. Someone says, yes, I'll sell to them. Selling is what you're doing. It's an active conversation where you're the expert in your industry. And you're saying, look, you can't test me because you're not testing me, you're testing yourself. And that's really beautiful. I want to talk about...
It takes a lot of bravado to be able to do that, and confidence.
Yeah.
Most people are so scared of no's, so scared of not, that was why the book was called There's No F in Sales. Because most conversations end with no sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I hadn't called the book that, because obviously 6 months after I wrote it, my business went from 150 million to nothing, and there was no F in sales. You've got to be very careful what you put down on paper.
Right.
But, if you want to sell in any market condition, if you want to be able to, as this recession gets worse, in the next couple of months, I don't participate in recessions. You can't give me a recession. You can't touch a recession. You can't smell a recession. So anybody participating is just a decision of how they're going to behave in reaction to the way they do business normally.
I love that. I love hearing that. I don't participate in recessions. It's beautiful. I do want to talk about, because this is really important, is that when the companies started to collapse and you unfortunately had to let people go, what was that like for you? And how did you navigate that?
I mean, I kept a diary. I didn't realize I was keeping a diary. I thought I was just journaling my frustrations, but it turned into a diary. And Equanimity, which is the book that I wrote about from February 2020 to December 21, I literally kept a month-by-month diary of everything that I did and I said, how I felt. Late 2020 was probably the worst quarter of my life. It was like a breakup every 5 minutes. It was
Oh,
like breaking up marriages. People have been with me 10, 15, 20 years. They're not, they weren't like, they helped me build this business. They were part of my team. They're part of my life. We spent days, weeks, months traveling together. So to be able to having to say goodbye to so many of them, including my own son, actually, it was a really traumatic time. At the beginning, it wasn't too bad because I just thought this would be a 6, 10, 12-week thing. If I knew it was going to last 102 weeks, then I would have obviously had a completely different approach.
yeah.
Alison Levine was one of the speakers who came in. I had 50 speakers come in and talk to me. And Alison was one of them, and she climbed Everest. And she said, it's one foot in front of the other. Because when she crossed the South Pole as well, and the North Pole, she said, look, when you're crossing the South Pole, all you see is white. And some days you go back 2 miles, depending which way the ice is moving.
Oh, God.
And, you've been walking all day and you've gone backwards. She said, you just literally have to just put one foot in front of the other, just take each moment as it comes. And that's the best you can do. And if you don't do well, that's all right. Rest your head on the pillow at night and go again tomorrow. And that was, I took a lot of solace from that. And that gave me a lot of confidence.
Simon, did I hear you correctly? Did you hire 50 people to come and talk to you?
So what I did was I reached out to a few people and said, look, I don't know what to do. I'm not quite, I've been in this experience before, but my team are it's like off season now, I guess. And I need to keep them in shape. I've got no money. We've lost all our money. We've got no revenue coming in. So I just need your help. So I reached out to 50, 2 or 3 people. And in the end, it turned out to be 50. And each of them came in and they talked to my team for an hour. Some of them talked for up to 3 hours and answered questions. And that's what became the book. I documented every one of those conversations, what I learned. You see, I invited them in to talk to my team. And what I realized was they were giving me the power and the information to make me feel so much more powerful and more confident of the situation.
That is key. And for anybody listening, please make note of this. And one of my questions was, who did you rely on while you were going through this? And I would have never thought of that. I mean, I would have thought maybe reach out to a mentor, but to have people come in and speak to your team, and clearly not just to like Rob, but to I'm guessing give them actionable advice on how to navigate this.
It was not just as it was. We had health and well-being information way ahead of the media. We had Belfer, Grover, Story, some of the biggest motivators on, public speakers on the planet, Dave Meltzer, Brad Lee, all these guys came in and gave their time graciously and talked about it. Gary Ridge from WD-40, Chester Elton talked about gratitude. Adrian Bankert talked about kindness. It was all different people from hard skills and soft skills, health and well-being. Jay Virgin, she talked about, how to keep fit and how to eat the right things if you got COVID. I mean, some of the stuff I knew by the time I got COVID was like, it was a doddle because I knew how to medicate myself through it. So, because if you think about it, in that early part of March to sort of June, no one knew what they were doing. Everybody was giving us different advice. There was so much advice going on. So to be able to give my team that sort of information was really powerful.
But you just said, and I'm sure people listening are thinking, hold on, he just said he didn't have any money. So how are you bringing in 50 speakers when you're out of cash?
Beg, borrow, steal. IOUs, asking a favor. I'm a component. I'm a believer in paying forward, the law of reciprocity. And I'm very good at convincing people to help me. I mean, I asked 52 people and only 2 said no. So I was obviously compelling at it.
And, this is, again, part of who you are. What I'm really putting together right now in this moment is that you are just not accepting a story that you don't want to live in. Like you're not accepting, I don't have enough money. Like that is unacceptable, or that is like, you just won't go there. I mean, I have people who I'm talking to about coaching and they'll say, well, I just don't have the money. And I say, I don't believe that. And I know it's not true. And it's funny because they've never heard that from someone. Most people, they say, I don't have enough money. And they're like, okay, well, I'm sorry. Right? Like, of course you have the money.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's in other people's pockets. You just have to learn to be valuable to get it out of those pockets and put it into yours. I think you really answered my question about how you turn things around. And that is by bringing in really smart people. Would you say that's kind of a bookend on this subject?
This whole concept about spending money versus investing in yourself versus, you know, investing in your business, it's all about energy. The person that's saying to you, I haven't got enough money, you're saying, I haven't got enough energy. I haven't got enough courage and belief in my own, because money is a very low vibrational energy. Right? It's a bit of paper. That's all it is. It's a piece of paper. What you do with it, how you treat it, how you feel about it is what will give its value and what in the end will be useful to you. But if your vibrations, if your energy levels, what you're going to attract, who you're going to attract, if they don't feel like you're going to make that little bit of paper more valuable to them, they're living in a scared, scarce environment in a moment of, well, if I give you this, I don't believe any more is going to come back. Therefore, I need to hang on to it. Right. And I'm a believer that it's a dripping tap. It's been dripping since, where are we now? 22. It's been dripping since 2008. It hasn't stopped. I just said, look, when I get rid of this, I've been plenty more where that came from. And I'm going to keep investing in myself, because the only thing that I can invest in that's going to get more successful is me. I could buy some property, that's going to go up and down. I buy some shares, they're going to go up and down. I buy a car, that's a waste of money. But me, if I'm better and more powerful and more confident than I was yesterday, there is a very good chance that I can deliver a better return for myself.
That's fantastic. And I hope everyone listening is taking that to heart, because you're right, Simon. Obviously, you're right, but you're right about the fact that when I talk to some people about coaching, all they think about is the 10, the 30, the $50,000 leaving their wallet, and not the value that they're going to get. And that's my fault, because clearly I haven't expressed it enough. And that we kind of slide into this next subject, which is my favorite subject, which is about selling. You were called a natural born seller. And the reason I don't like that term, natural born seller, is it's kind of like calling Rembrandt a natural born painter. It doesn't give appreciation to the hundreds of hours it took you to become great at this craft.
It's interesting. I'm not sure if I mentioned this at the talk I gave as a record, but I was with Coach Burton Bradley the week before, and I did a talk, and I said, when I started out in my career at 17 years old, I got a Zig Ziglar tape, and that lovely Southern accent of, and this thing took 28 days to arrive. You put it in your cassette, you listen to it, and I'm like, my God, what sort of accent is that? I'm from England, we don't sound like that. But I loved it, and it was, we didn't have access to a phone and the content that is available just at a click of a finger today. So I listened to this tape over and over again, and clearly it was ingrained in my head. But I hadn't realized how much impact it had had until about, I don't know, 1 or 2 Christmases ago, where I found all his old tapes on Spotify, and I started listening to it. And I went, you'll never guess it, to my wife. You'll never guess what that Zig Ziglar nicked all my material.
That's really funny.
So I literally have been regurgitating his stuff and his content for so many years, but not realizing it was even his.
Of course, because you make it your own. I mean, there's no, you're not going to talk in his accent. You're not going to say his words. And I think that's what a lot of people resist in sales training, is like, I don't want to sound like someone else. Well, don't. You make it your own.
Absolutely.
There's what I call the 3 silent killers of success, right? Sleep, stress, and productivity. I found something that beats the silent killers. It's a technology that lives on your phone. It's sound waves that put your brain into states of relaxation and focus. Now, I just thought it was bullshit, right? But then I heard that this company, they're called Newcalm. Newcalm is being used by the Army, by U.S. Special Forces, the FBI, professional football teams. Surgeons are using Newcalm instead of anesthesia. So I put it on my phone. Oh my God. 20 minutes of Newcalm was like 2 cups of coffee. And then on the other side, I use Newcalm at night, and it puts me out like a light. Now, if you want a free week of Newcalm, just text the word CALM, C-A-L-M, to this number, 213-409-8366. 213-409-8366. and text the word CALM, C-A-L-M. Get more sleep, feel less stress, and blow your productivity out of the water. Okay, let's get back into this. And I want to talk about your book, There Is No F in Sales, which it's funny because if you say it fast, it sounds like there is no F in sales.
What it is.
which sounds a little bit like my book, which is called Selling is Bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's not just like a list of here's how to sell. It's inspirational advice and motivation about surviving global business today. And by the way, every cent of profit from this book is going to charity, just so everyone knows this is not about just you lining your pockets. And I love what you say, which is give people the solution. There are already enough people focusing on problems. Would you talk about that in terms of sales, please?
What's been nice is that I guess people who've bought the new book have suddenly gone back and bought the old book because the sales are starting to creep up nicely on the old book. So I've got to send Beam, which is the charity that I donate for, a nice check next month. Anyway, it's you ask someone why something won't work, and they'll give you 10 reasons, and then I always say, well, give me one reason why it will, and that's the bit of the brain that I want to go to. I don't care about the 10 reasons why it won't work because they're not really important. We've got rid of those now. Thank you for sharing them. Now let's focus on the one reason it will. And we always find that. We always find that one reason. And you only ever need one reason. You only ever need one key to the door to open it. It's such a simple thing, but the brain is automatically looking for problems and failures and errors. I used to have this guy work for me, and whenever I came out with a new commission scheme or a new plan, I'd say, do me a favor, have a look at this and break it for me. And I got so good at it towards the end that they couldn't break my plans because I'd considered all the things that could go wrong, and I just focused on the things that could go right. And I guess that's another, if you go back and say success leaves clues, but why were we so successful? Because we made sure that we looked after all the people, both not just in my organization, not just in my client's organization, but my clients' organizations.
Wow.
That was how deep I would look at situations. Okay, I don't know, Hilton Hotels. And they're telling me all the things they want. And I go, okay, I'm a client of yours, and I spend a lot of time in your hotels. Why is that important to me? And they go, what? I said, you're going to advertise for people like me, but I think your messaging and your offers are all wrong. And they go, no one's ever thought about it like that.
Yeah.
And I'd go through the process with them as well. I said, look, this is the message that's in your advert. Small problem here. It doesn't work. You go to that website doesn't work. That landing page doesn't work. I said, you're then going to tell me that my thing, whatever my thing is, doesn't work either because you haven't done the legwork. I'm never in a hurry to do anything. I like to make sure that I'm doing my checks and balances. Now, Napoleon said, dress me slowly, I'm in a hurry. And that has always been sort of something that's played through my mind, which is that, I'm moving very fast. I do things very fast, but I'm checking and balancing and making sure that the shirts are all buttoned up in the right place.
Simon, look, I'm going to complain about you, man, because every answer that you give me inspires about 30 other questions. So knock it off. I want to share something, what you said about Hilton, which is that the reason nobody ever said that to them is because it's sort of like I said earlier, most people are just trying to get you to buy stuff. Oh, this is the ad that you want to place? Great, let's go with it. What you said is, this isn't going to work. Like, I want it to work. You genuinely care about their success and the success of the people experiencing their company. And you do exactly the thing I talk about, which is you go to where your client is, turn around and look at your business from their perspective, right? Not what you want to sell them, but what they want to buy. And you create that lifelong customer when you give them that perspective, which is this thing that you're doing, even though you want to pay me for it, isn't going to work. Let's do something else. That's genuinely caring. I love that.
I mean, the book, The Knife in Sales, was read by the whole Hilton sales team because I can't remember how they found a copy of it. And they phoned me up, and I've just done a talk in Tulum with them a month ago for the whole Latin American sales team. And he reached out to me via LinkedIn and said, I've read your book. We're running this book club. Would you come and talk to the team? And I just replied, send me the link. And he was explaining this in Spanish to the whole audience. So it was 150 people there. He goes, he talks about this stuff in his book about being responsive and, just reach out. He goes, but the fact that he actually did it and we had the conversation, and it blew their minds because his team didn't know I was coming. They all had a copy of the book, and I turned up and we had the most amazing conversation. And they've been through all my books now and they've read them all. And their team has stayed together during COVID. One of the few sales teams, especially in the hospitality space, that actually did stay together, and they're thriving because of it. And I think that's really important. If you can keep your team together during hard times, if you can keep your team motivated and inspired, that's when they'll fight for you and get you out of your mess.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get out of this mess on my own. I can't make millions of phone calls and send millions of emails and do all these things. I need a team around me. I need people around me who I trust, who believe what I believe, who believe who believe tomorrow's going to be better than today.
But the only reason they believe that, Simon, is because of you, because you're sharing your vision with so much enthusiasm and heart that they say, I have to do this.
We launched a new product 6 weeks ago, and we're bringing brands together to offer free Wi-Fi, both at the airports and in flight. And this is a completely new product. And I just looked at the numbers today, and we've offered 1 million free Wi-Fi sessions in flight and at the airports this month. And I'm like, that was a business that didn't exist 6 weeks ago. So it's like, wow, if we've done that many impressions in 1 month, imagine what we're going to do next year. And that's the thing. It's just about taking an audience, taking a sector. Now, other people have tried to sell this product and failed. And I sat down with the company. I said, I'm not quite sure why. I'd like you to explain to me, why am I succeeding where other people haven't?
Yeah.
And it was really interesting listening to his answers, because it was all rubbish stories.
And what were the answers?
Well, you've got much more of a better story. You have the airport, you have the TV, you have the in-flight, you have the magazine, you have the TV screens. So, you've got the thing. It's another nice piece of jigsaw. And I went, okay. But if I didn't have those, I still would have achieved what I'm about to achieve.
Yeah.
And he went, I guess that's why we're working with you, right?
What do you think it is? What do you think you did that they didn't, that other people didn't do?
Belief. Confidence and belief in a sales team who are prepared to go out there and take lots of no's. And actually also tell customers no as well. People come back to us and go, well, I'll give you this much for it. And we say, thank you, no, thank you. And but I want to do this. That's the price. That's what we do. We're expensive. We know it.
Exactly.
Where else can you get an uninterrupted advert with no skips and a guaranteed landing on your webpage? That's priceless. And they want the thing that you're giving them so badly, they're prepared to sit and watch your video and answer your questions and do whatever you want them to do.
Yeah.
So you just create a narrative that makes people connected to what you do.
I love that. Whenever I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and people ask me, like, what do I do when they ask me to lower my price? Like, do I do that and get them as a customer? I'm like, no, like, you are letting your customer be the expert of your business. You know what the value is. And it would be like going to a brain surgeon and saying, look, here's how I want you to do surgery on me. Right? Like, I just love it that, like, no, we're not dropping the price. This is what it is. And because we're the expert.
I'm not saying that we never drop prices. I'm also not saying that, but that point you made about the entrepreneur, about going to a brain surgeon, is the one that I really want to talk about, because it really does bother me. Because I'll sit down with people and, I mentor a lot of kids and I mentor a lot of senior professionals who are stressed out. And I say things to them and they go, yes, but, and I'll go, well, yes, but what? But means you don't agree with everything you said before. So yes is actually means no. You're going to keep arguing me. You're going to keep challenging me, and you're going to keep telling me you're doing it your way. How's that serving you? And you're going to go, well, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you. If everything I suggest, you're going to challenge me and tell me you know better, it's going to be a really short game. You give me your money, I'll leave. Thank you very much. And you carry on doing what you're doing, because I'm not working with you. I don't want the reputation of saying, oh, I worked with him and didn't get any results because I refused to listen to him. Yeah. And I think that's the thing with any form of coaching, be it people pay you to it or you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. It's like, if people are not prepared to listen, to change, to review, to think, to learn, you asked me about natural born seller. I was the shyest human being at 16. I would cross the road in order not to make eye contact with you. I don't think I had the gift of the gab,
Yeah.
but it came, you're right, it came from constant and never ending investment in me, in my learning, in my ability to grow and learn and get better than I was yesterday. And I studied everything from hypnosis, handwriting, NLP, micro
Yeah.
expressions, body language. All these things have made me a bit more knowledgeable about everything.
I love that. And thank you for saying that, because I get that too. Well, you got the gift of gab, you're natural. Like, I was not, people think, oh, you must have been like the president of your class in high school. I was such a recluse that I was considering suicide. I was so frightened of life. And like you, I've invested so much time, money, and energy in NLP, hypnotism, studying all kinds of different avenues of influence. Because at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, I want to be influential to people's lives in a positive way. Like, I don't make any money off this show. You don't. I mean, it's cost me thousands of dollars, but I think it's the best way to do the best work for the people who need it the most. And I got to ask you, Simon, like, there's no reason for you to agree to be on my show. Like, there's nothing that you can really get from this. And this wasn't in my questions, but I'm really curious. First, like, why did you agree to do this?
Why not?
Yeah, but there's nothing in it for you.
Yeah, but you don't do things for gain. You do things because, one, I want to see, I want to leave people better than I find them.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer in serendipity. And I told you the law of reciprocity. These things that happen are things that will make, certainly made your day today. We've had a great conversation. I've made you smile more than once. And I hope I'll do it a few more times before we finish. But the truth is, there are some people out there who say, I was on this show and I looked at the views on YouTube and I went 20 or 30 views. And I said to my agent, I'll still do it. And he goes, why do you want to do it? I said, because I really like the guy. I think his content's really good. And he shot some content before and after with me and we're talking. And I said, listen, I just want you to know this. I am fully aware that, you're not getting enough people listening and watching. But if you get something from this interview, I will feel like I've had a good day. And he stopped and he looked at me, he went, give me a bit of goosebumps. He said, I was actually thinking of stopping the show because I just thought, what's the point? No one's watching or listening. And he goes, that conversation, that moment, he goes, I decided, no, not only am I going to carry on doing it, I'm going to up my level of investment. I'm going to up my level of determination. And I watch him now and his shows now get thousands of views. He's doing thousands of bits of content. He's improved everything he's done. And he's getting much bigger guests. And I just, I guess it comes from that one conversation of someone believing in you, someone having confidence in you, right? Because it doesn't matter what. Too many people take a self-serving view of everything, as opposed to maybe I can help somebody with one of the messages that I give.
But you've got to have a lot of demands on your time. How do you decide?
I'm very good. I'm very good at getting to inbox zero, though I just found 5 emails that I missed. So I need to respond to those. Time management is part of being a really good entrepreneur, is being able to manage your time effectively. And, I've got to make sure there's stuff in my diary for me that I'm recharging, rebooting, getting my energies back. And that's really important. There's no such thing as balance. Right? You sleep 8 hours, you work 8 hours, and then you've got 8 hours to do everything you want to do in your life. Wherever my feet are, wherever I am present, and whatever I'm doing, I want to be the best version of that. I spent the weekend with my wife, and we've had the most amazing weekend because we were both present, mainly because our phone batteries died. But we were able to chat and drink and eat and have so much fun. And I think that's why I think this week I've woken up and I feel just super, super energized.
Wow.
And the other thing is this, I wrote the diary Equanimity. And ever since then, I've been keeping a diary, a roundup of every month. And, today is the last day of October, so my roundup will go up tonight. And I know that in 30 days, I've got to write it again. And I've got to make sure that I've got enough great content in there that if somebody reading it goes, I want to have his life. I walk around my local village and people stop me and go, I just want to say, and this is the really interesting thing about exactly what you said. Why do you do things? If I look at the statistics and the things, I'm thinking, oh, nobody's paying attention. No one's noticing. These three people all came up to me all within an hour of each other and said, wish I had your life. I wish I could do what you do. And I just thought, you just don't know who's watching or who's paying attention. I write a poem every morning and I post it on Instagram under the mantle of motivational poet. And some people will say to me, well, no one follows it. You don't get any likes or comments. I don't care. I go, what do you mean you don't care? And I get these people trying to sell me, I'll get you thousands of followers. I'll get you all these likes. I said, it's not important. He goes, why is it not important? I said, because I don't write this poem for anybody else but me. They give me my time to be creative and think differently and think about things that I want to say. And that's what I do it for. If someone likes it, shares it, comments it, which they do, I go, that's a bonus. But that's not the reason I do it. I do it because it allows me to have some time to use my creative side of my brain to write poetry. I started it in January 2021. It's now, I think I'm up to now 700 poems are on Instagram. You can go back and see what my moods were like in 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year and a half ago, because every single morning a message goes up on there. And it's the first thing I do when I wake up, because it's part of my rituals, part of my days. It's something I do not break. Right, a ritual. People say, "Oh, I've got these rituals," and then they'll break them or they'll move them. You've got to have rituals that you do not break, no matter what, no matter whatever the conditions are. Do not break. And for me, it's that. And so don't ever be put off by the fact that nobody likes it, no one's commenting, because somebody out there is getting impact from something you do or say.
Simon, it's a habit of excellence. That's what you're talking about. And I want to tell my listeners that you were a minute early to our call. And most people are a few minutes late, and they come on, hey, sorry, I'm late. I'm really busy. And, it's fine. But you were a minute early and you were ready to go. And it's those things. I mean, it's those little things that you're not saying, oh, I got to be a minute early so Dan thinks I'm on top of things when I'm really not, right? It is in all things that you have this habit and these rituals of excellence. It's like you were talking about earlier, people fixing things, excellence. And if there's any takeaway, single takeaway that I would point to, it is that you focus on excellence in all things, in yourself, in your people, in the people that you're selling to. Try to help. It keeps coming back to excellence. And where do you suppose that came from for you? Like, how is that inside of you?
It's a very interesting observation. It's that attention to detail. It's a level of service levels that I expect from people who serve me in a restaurant. It's the level of, if I go anywhere or stay in a hotel, or hotels got rid of doormans and they replace them with tramps on the door, right? It's like little things that really piss me off because it spoils that experience. Because the reason we didn't have people sleeping in the doorway is because there was a doorman there to stop them. You take the doorman away, then all of a sudden that experience changes. And there isn't somebody to lift the bags out of the cab. There isn't someone to take your bags in and say, don't worry, go and check in. I arrived at a hotel the other week and there was a doorman there and he just watched me lugging my cases out this car. And I was thinking, as I brushed past him, sweating, thinking, what are you doing here? What's your job? And then he opens the car door and he's expecting a tip, for opening the car door for the taxi. It's like, come on, do your job properly. That's what frustrates me. I hate people who don't do their jobs with passion, who don't smile when they do what they do. And that doesn't mean that I do it all or anybody here does, for a matter of fact. We all have bad days. We're all human. It's consistency over time. If over a period of time you're not delivering the best service levels to your customers, if you're not delivering the best information, I always say to people, share something new, share some information. If you find something interesting about hotel industry, about car industry, about something, share it with your clients. You don't have to ask them for anything other than, well, I saw this, I thought this might be useful for you. And the other thing is purple cowing. I had one of the big US tourism agencies over last week and we went for lunch and, they very kindly bought lunch and they didn't have to. And it was a very nice restaurant. And then we just talked about something. We talked about the art of handwritten letters and thank yous. So I went out that afternoon and there was 3 ladies there and I bought them all a different card because I could have easily bought a pack of 10 cards but I went and bought 3 different thank you cards. and I wrote them all a thank you, a handwritten thank you. And I wrapped them up and I gave them to one of the ladies. I said, these are for you, but you're not allowed to open it till you're back on the plane. And I just think that's the differentiator. That's what they will remember. I organized a cab to pick them up at the airport with all their branding on it. So they had all their tourism branding on their car, on the seats. And they got there, they were like, no way. This is like, it wasn't part of the package. They created a package and that was nothing to do with it. But I had this cab waiting for them, that took them to their hotel. Brand new cab, like a 2022 cab. So it wasn't like some old smelly cab. And I just think that's the level of service that I will go to for my customers. And we went for dinner in the evening and it was an even more expensive place than we've been for lunch. And I said, look, here's the deal. They said, will you come to our talk next month and just come and talk to, be part of the experience? And I said, of course I will. On one condition, I pay for dinner. And they're like, yeah. I said, you pay for dinner, I'm not coming. And they let me pay for dinner. By the way, it was a very expensive dinner. I'm gonna have issues with my accounts team when they see the bill. But it was, it was part of the experience that I wanted them to have. I wanted them to go away and say, I like doing business with Inc. I like doing business with Reach TV. I like doing business with these guys because they really do give a monkeys about us.
Simon, you give people an experience they can't get anywhere else.
They probably can get it everywhere else, but I don't think everyone else is awake and aware and available to do it.
That's why they can't get it anywhere else. Of course people could, but they're not. And I think one of the questions that I was going to ask you was about like someone who isn't good at sales and wants to get better at sales. I think you kind of answered it, which is like you give these amazing experiences that make people say, wow, right? That leave an impression, that say you care because they're excellent. And I don't know
can you do that when you're starting out or when you're new? I guess you can. You can still give a level of service which is beyond what, I always say to people, look, you look at your job description and say, these are the 15 things you have to do. You add another 10 that are not on your job description that you're going to do as a set of standards for yourself.
Yeah.
And when they say, but I'm not getting paid to do that, I said, do you want to get paid to do those? He goes, yeah, we'll do them. You do those 25 instead of 15. And I promise you, you'll be recognized, you'll be paid a lot more money. Yeah. You carry on just delivering what you're paid to do, you'll get paid what you're paid to do. That's no more, no less. Everyone will be happy for you. You want them sitting in a board meeting talking about you as, have you seen what they do? I walked in just now and I just saw one of the girls who's only been with me about a month, closing a deal for somebody else. She's slightly more experienced than the person that was there, but she was on the phone closing it for her. And I just thought, I noticed that. Okay. I've noticed it. It's registered in there. She's going beyond what she's paid to do. That's not in her job description.
Wow.
Right. So you've got to be a noticer. You've got to notice what your team are doing, what your team are saying. I've just sent my team, they just won a trip to Singapore. And it was, I didn't really want to put it into this year because it's going to cost me money in this financial year. But I went, do you know what? They've done it. They deserve it.
Yeah.
It's great for the business to finish on a high. I'll take that hit this year rather than wait till next year. And they all came in and they just, all three of them hugged me and said, we are so grateful. None of us have been to Asia and we really want to, we just appreciate what you're doing for us.
I think it's just inside of you now, Simon, to give people these powerful experiences. And like you said, can people starting out in a new business do that? Yes, of course, because it doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money. When I started this podcast, I listened to a bunch of podcasts. And the thing that occurred to me is when they introduced a guest, it was really clear that they were reading the intro that the guest gave them. And I thought, I bet if I rewrite that intro or create my own intro for the guest, that they'll feel really good. Like if I create a really great experience of an intro, then that might make a fun interview. And so when you said like, wow, that was a great intro, I thought, oh, cool. I gave him an experience already.
If only you'd got all the facts right, then it would be amazing.
I know, right? Well, it's a hyper-realistic version of you, Simon, that I'm not going to back away from. But yeah, just goes to show that didn't cost me anything, right? I didn't have to invest any money. I invested my time, but it's something I thought up and executed. And what I hear you saying is that anybody can think up and execute an experience for someone that they can't get anywhere else because you've done that. And look,
I'll tell you what's quite interesting about that point. So there are a couple of podcasts I'd like to be on. And I know people who've been on this podcast. So I reached out to them and say, what's he like? And they said he is an unbelievable researcher. He researches the guests too, and within an inch of their lives, he finds out information about them. And he reads their books, he reads their details. Like before he'll interview them, he wants to know. He'll read every article that's ever been written about him, about the guest or them. And I just think, and then he's not satisfied with one camera or a Zoom camera. He'll have 2 or 3 cameras. It'll be shot beautifully. It'll be edited beautifully. So he's a perfectionist. What happens when you do that is that you have the number one podcast. If you want to have the best podcast in the world, you have to behave in a certain way. You can't cut corners. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't use poor sound. John Lee Dumas has been a bit of time with last week. I mean, he is unbelievable. He's done 3,700 episodes. 3,700. And no matter which one you pick, they'll all be perfect. Why? Because he has a process that he follows. And I just think that there are some amazing people out there doing amazing things. And if you're going to do something, this isn't your main business, but if this was your main business, there would be a level and a standard and a set of guidelines that you would follow and you would do it. And that's what I would give to any entrepreneur. Right now, the set of guidelines that you run by are not good enough. They'll make you a $10 million company. They will not get you to $20 million. When I was growing up and in the early days of Inc., we got taken over in 2003. And we were doing 4 million. And the guys that came in were all super highly intelligent people. And they said, yeah, it's really great what you do, but you won't be able to get to 10 doing it that way. And I got to 10. And they said, yeah, that's super great, but you won't be able to get to 20 doing it the way you're doing it. And I went, okay. I got to 20. You know where this story's going. You won't get to 50. You won't get. And I was on my way to 150, doing it exactly the same way that they told me wouldn't work, right? Because I didn't conform. But that's not how it's supposed to be done. I said, what? Says who? Says, right? Your book of rules, not my book of rules. My book of rules says I can get anywhere I want to get to. I can achieve anything I want to achieve. I'm not limited by your thinking and your beliefs. So it really is important that if you're running a business, that you stick to your beliefs and your confidence. Don't let other people tell you how to run a business or how you should do it, unless they've done what you want to do and they've gone where you want to go. Because if they haven't, and also be explicit, they need to have done it within the last couple of years. Otherwise, at some point, they did it 20 years ago where the market was very different. I want someone who's done it in difficult market conditions and survived, helping me and giving me advice.
Well, Simon, I would like to continue talking with you for the rest of the day. And we've gone way over, but I want to thank you for being so generous with your time today. I mean, everything that you've shared about struggle and comeback and excellence, and it's all priceless information for my audience. I mean, it would be impossible for most of us to ever gain access to someone like you. So having you here is such a rare treat. And so thank you for being on for Badass Entrepreneurs Only.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, one last thing. If you're feeling stuck in business life, wherever, download my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action. In this book, you'll see how the stories that you tell yourself are stopping yourself from living your greatest life. Just text the word GAP, G-A-P, to this number, 213-409-8366. 213-409-8366, and text the word GAP. It's a short read, it's fun, it's easy, and if you hate reading like I do, you can grab the audiobook. It's at that same link. Just text the word GAP, G-A-P, to 213-409-8366. You'll love it. All right, that's it. Go out there and be badass today.